Hey, Bulldog fans, and Merry Christmas from Robbie Falk here from 247 Sports and the Starkville Daily News. I appreciate you guys for checking in. Just a couple of days away from Christmas, I decided to come on here and realize I'm about 2 days late from doing a little signing day recap for Mississippi State, but been kind of busy. But did want to come here and kind of share some thoughts on Mississippi State's signing day, what they were able to accomplish in Jeff Lebby's first signing day as a head coach. And it was a good day for Mississippi State. We didn't see any bad surprises. We didn't see really any major surprises for Mississippi State at all. Not a whole lot of earth-shattering news, but it was a successful day for Mississippi State, and hopefully more to come for the Bulldogs in the coming weeks. And we will certainly talk about what is to come for Mississippi State and some targets in the next couple of weeks. But as far as signing day was on Wednesday, Bulldogs finished with the 32nd best signing class in the country as it stands right now, and that obviously has a chance to move up and move down as well. I believe it will grow for the Bulldogs as we continue through the next few months and the transfer portal starts to bring new players into focus, and also the opportunity that's ahead for Jeff Lebby with a couple of prospects as well. But 32nd right now for the Bulldogs, and I believe that includes the transfer portal players as well. And we've talked about some of those players, but those guys were made official on Wednesday, led by, to me, the wide receiver from UTEP, Kelly Akari, who last year had over 1,000 yards receiving, was one of the top five receivers nationally in yards per catch, over 20 yards per catch for him. He's a big play wide receiver. Good-bodied kid, 6'1", 194. I think has a chance to make Mississippi State a big play threat when he's on the field. And that's kind of what you were looking for in the portal, is to find a guy like that. And Jeff Lebby's offense that can kind of stretch the field a little bit and hit you some big plays down the field. And it's going to be big for a quarterback, Blake Shapen, who also signed on Wednesday. And when I say signed, these guys are not bound to anything other than the fact that they cannot transfer now within the SEC this year. They can transfer anywhere else. If they decided to go to another spot, they could do that, because it's not like high school and junior college kids when they sign a national letter of intent. Basically signing a financial agreement and also a financial aid agreement, and also it just prevents them from transferring within the SEC in this first period until they enroll in school. When they enroll in school, it's over. They cannot transfer. But that's kind of where they are right now. So State signed Kelly Akari. They signed offensive guard Marion Martinez from LSU, who was kind of their swing guy last year off the bench. Wasn't a full-time starter for him, but did get a lot of playing time during his career at LSU. He's going to add a experienced depth piece to Mississippi State on the offensive line. Suleiman Kapaka from Purdue was kind of a second-string guy for them, getting just a depth piece for Mississippi State. Trey Wright, defensive back from Memphis, a cornerback who last year redshirted for the Memphis Tigers. He had, of course, that experience there with Mississippi State's safeties coach. So they brought him in to add to this class. The Bulldogs need some bodies back there. I don't think he's a guy that's a difference maker for you in the back end of the secondary. But I do think that, he does add some depth there, and he's going to be able to come in and compete. And a guy that's got 4 years left. I mean, he's a project, but he's a guy that you can work with for multiple years. It's not like he's coming in with only 1 year to spare. So he hasn't really been able to do anything just yet. The Ball brothers, Cameron and Justin. Justin came from Vanderbilt, Cameron from Buffalo. Cameron Ball is actually the highest-rated player in Mississippi State's transfer class right now. He was a redshirt freshman last year, started, had I think 8 catches for 84 yards or something like that. Started for them as a first-year guy. I know he's a redshirt guy, but as a freshman, he was starting for him. And there's a lot of things to work with there. 6'6", 235, pretty athletic guy. I like his potential more than I do Justin at this point, because I think there's a pretty high ceiling there for him. So we'll see what he's able to do. And then Justin last year was a starter for Vanderbilt. I know you haven't seen any eye-popping numbers from these two, but it flips your tight end group pretty significantly in that you have guys that have had catches in this league and you have guys that have played the position. Mississippi State didn't have that last year. Rylan Goody played 4 or 5 years at, I guess it was 4 years at Georgia, never had a catch at Georgia. And then you had, Ja'Karius Clayton playing tight end. He's never played, he played it in high school, but that's not the position that Mississippi State recruited him to play. Malik Ellis was offensive lineman for the Bulldogs that got converted to tight end. So, these guys, Antonio Harmon was a wide receiver. These guys weren't tight ends. So Mississippi State's going out and recruiting actual tight ends. It's a good starting point for the Bulldogs right now. McKylan Pounders was Mississippi State's, to me, the biggest get in the class, in the transfer class at this point, especially now Percy Lewis is transferred, which I think is related to McKylan Pounders. I've heard that he wasn't thrilled about the possibilities of having another guy to compete with, and that's what this is all about. If you have dreams of playing in the NFL, you're going to have to compete with people. And if McKylan Pounders scares you off, that's not a good sign. So if that is indeed why Percy Lewis is leaving, that's not great. But that seems to be the word. He was really interested in, getting that job next year. And McKylan Pounders is a guy that poses a threat there. And I think really he did not want to move inside, which was also a possibility. And that was probably what was going to happen. So Pounders, I think, as your starting left tackle, was excellent last year at Memphis. He has 2 years left to play. I think he comes in and immediately gives you a guy that can lock down that left side. He gave up 1 sack last year for Memphis and 400 snaps, I think it was. So, I think this was an excellent pickup for Mississippi State. Was getting interest from several teams inside the SEC. I think Texas A&M was after him, Auburn, obviously, Ole Miss. And if you remember, McKylan Pounders was committed to Mississippi State in high school out of Byhalia. Ole Miss flipped him, kind of played some games with him just to try to get some momentum in that recruiting process. And he ends up getting dropped by Ole Miss and landed at Memphis and had a really good career there. Now he has a chance to be really good with the Bulldogs, and he is so excited to be at Mississippi State. You read some of the quotes, you talk to him a little bit. He's thrilled to be at Mississippi State. He's thrilled to have a second chance here, and I think he's going to take advantage of it. Ethan Miner, the center from North Texas, who was the number 2 rated center in the country last year from PFF as far as production, and in the transfer portal, I believe he was the number 1 center in the portal. So again, just like Pounders, this is a guy that's going to come in immediately, lock down that spot, and give you a guy that should be pretty solid on the offensive line. So when you talk about Miner, Pounders, and Martinez, that's 3 guys coming from experienced backgrounds. For sure, I think Pounders and Miner are going to be starters. And then Martinez is going to give you a good guy to compete with other players. Mississippi State has some pieces that they can fill those other 3 spots. And you now have taken a question mark of a position group on the offensive line. I think you've made it a strength of your offense if everything comes together. Kedrick Bingley-Jones also signed out of North Carolina. Was a highly rated guy out of high school, one of the top defensive linemen in the high school ranks out of North Carolina just a few years ago, 93 ranking. So he was moving up towards a mid-level 4-star and just has not been healthy. I think he had an Achilles injury. Just hasn't been healthy enough to really help out North Carolina. He hasn't done anything. And with him and Suleiman from Purdue, those are guys that, they just haven't had a ton of production in their college careers. I think they can, fill a role for you, but we just haven't seen enough there to feel great about those guys. Right now, the defensive transfer portal pickups are just not really moving the needle from a standpoint of bringing in guys that are better than the guys that you've lost. And that's what you're – sorry about that. It seems like I always sneeze on here. That's kind of the goal of the second half of this portal is to get guys that can come in and immediately make you a better defense, because the Bulldogs have got to get better defensively to be able to stop some teams. You don't want to get in the ball games where you're having to outscore teams with 40 to 50 points. You can't rely on your offense like that. So State's got to have some guys come in here that are difference makers on the defensive line. Jeff Lebby said on Wednesday he wants an edge player, going to need some safeties, maybe need a cornerback. I think you might need a linebacker too. Didn't mention linebacker, I don't think, but you need some defensive guys in this second half here to really help you out, and we'll see if they're able to get some traction there. So far, they have not been able to get traction on the defensive side with some really good players. And then rounding out the transfer portal class, obviously Blake Shapen, who was, I believe, the first transfer Mississippi State got a few weeks ago. Quarterback, Baylor commitment, former Baylor player, sorry. Has thrown for, well over 5,000 yards in his career. I think 39 touchdowns, something like that, maybe 15 interceptions, 63% completion percentage. Was really good at Baylor when he was healthy. If he's healthy at Mississippi State, I think he can be really good. So that's your transfer class. As far as, since last week that we talked, just kind of going through some guys that Mississippi State picked up since that conversation that we had on Talkin Dawgs last week. One of the big ones was retaining Tyler Woodard in the class. He's been committed, never decommitted, but came out with a top 3 as a commitment: Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Arkansas, and that obviously raises some eyebrows when that happens. And the Bulldogs were able to kind of seal him on his visit last week. Came on his visit and really had a good time. They sold him on the vision there, and he seems to be good to go. Really picked up some steam there in his recruitment as the year went on. A lot of teams started jumping in late in the process, and the Bulldogs had to fend off a few SEC teams. I think he's going to be good for them next year at safety. Could wrap up a starting safety spot in the spring. We'll see if he's able to do that, but good news for Mississippi State to hold on to him. A little bit of a surprise for some was Jatavius Johnson, Boogie Johnson, coming out of Hooks, Texas. He was on a visit last weekend for Mississippi State, an official visit, and we weren't really sure, was Mississippi State, were they going to offer him a scholarship? Is he a walk-on? Because, I don't even know if he had a profile on 247 last week. Was committed to Colorado State. He comes from a very small town, a small school there in Hooks, and you look at his film, and he's a super athletic kid, 6'2", 180, plays wide receiver, defensive back, kind of doing it all for them. And I think safety's probably going to be where he ends up. That's what he was signed as by Mississippi State. We gave him an 87, so he's coming up on a high 3-star. That's what we feel about him when we watch his film. He really kind of jumps off the page at you as an athlete. I think he's a guy that is definitely a developmental piece. I don't see him coming out this year and really helping Mississippi State, but you never know. But could be a guy that we look back on that Mississippi State picked up late in the process. I think John Cooper had a relationship with that coaching staff there and also with Boogie, and that's kind of where that came from late in the process there. I think this could end up being eventually a good pickup for Mississippi State. And that cat, you can see its tail. It's decided to jump up on the swing with me. Ricky Johnson was a surprise to some too. There was a guy we were told to keep quiet last week. He was in on an official visit with Mississippi State. The cat's tail. It's kind of weird too. You can't see its body. You just see this thing. It's kind of weird. Comes from Houston County in Georgia. Obviously, fertile recruiting ground there for football players in Georgia. And really like this kid. You look at his film, he is electric on that tape, just runs away from people, long-bodied kid. Was committed to Stanford. If you keep up with Stanford's recruiting and kind of how they do things, they don't like whenever you are talking to other schools and visiting other schools. So his scholarship was in danger when he was going to Mississippi State. And if you, like I said, if you kept up with Stanford, kids don't really decommit from them. They don't look around. That's a tough place to beat out for a kid because it's such a prestigious school. This is the weirdest thing with his tail. Get your tail out of my face, please. But he really had a good relationship with Chad Bumpus. I hear Chad Bumpus really loves this kid, and I think just adds to this growing class for Chad Bumpus. His first class as a Mississippi State coach has been really impressive, and this just adds to it. Ricky Johnson, I think, he's going to be a guy that I think we talk about in a few years as a great get for Chad Bumpus. Other guys that showed up on signing day, I mean, obviously we didn't talk, I don't think, about Kai McClendon, or maybe we did. Yeah, we did. We talked about him. He signed, the Gulfport defensive lineman, guy that State hit up late in the process. State flipped Elijah Cannon from Florida Atlantic, cornerback from Florida Atlantic, had been committed to them since the summer. He came in on an official visit last week as well. Obviously has a relationship with some of Mississippi State's staff. And that was a good late pickup, I think, for them. 6'1", 170 pounds. Good, long, lean kid. Get him in the weight room. I think in a couple of years he could be really good. State also got a commitment from EMCC linebacker Marcus Ross. I think it was the day before signing day, maybe, that he committed. Leading tackler for the national runners-up of EMCC is Marcus Ross, and I think a guy that can really strike you. I mean, he'll come down here hill and hit you. And then finally, State signed a safety out of Katy, Texas, and Cyrus Reyes, who was committed to Memphis. Really smart player. I think he plays the game the right way. Another guy that, is probably a bit of a project that's going to take a couple years to get ready. So there's a few of those guys in this class for Mississippi State that's it's going to take a little bit to get ready. But, there's some potential with some of these guys too. So anything else on here? Terrence Hibbler, you guys remember him. He came out with something on Monday or Tuesday, announcing he was shutting things down. A lot of people don't know this, but Hibbler was getting a lot of interest from Alabama and Texas and teams like that late. They're really hitting him up. And David Turner did a great job on keeping him on board. I think he's going to be a good one for the Bulldogs. And we're going to look back in a few years and say that was a bad ranking, I think, to have him as a 3-star. And the Bulldogs obviously signed their some of their higher-rated guys, Mario Craver, Michael Van Buren. Both those guys committed to Mississippi State in that first official visit weekend. J.J. Harrell signed, and then Jimothy Lewis, the offensive lineman that was originally from Ridgeland that went to MRA. He ended up going to IMG. He signed last week as well. So decent class. I think a solid class for the Bulldogs, especially the high school guys. And there's still work to be done here. In the next couple of weeks, Mississippi State is trying to sign 2 of the biggest pieces of the class, one of them being wide receiver Stonka Burnside from Starkville, who the Bulldogs have been after for a long time, and he was committed to Mississippi State from the summer into the season before he decided to open things up. It's down to Mississippi State and Ole Miss. I'm hearing good things about Mississippi State, but it's never over until we hear from him and we see Mississippi State make that announcement. So I do want to caution you there. Let's wait that thing out, but I feel good about it right now. And I feel good about Daniel Hill, the running back from Meridian. Bulldogs are battling Alabama for him. It's kind of a waiting game. Wait and see if he gets that offer or he has an offer from Bama, but he gets the go-ahead to go ahead and commit, because I think he would come to Alabama no matter what. So, we'll see what happens there, but I feel good about those 2. Adding those 2, I think Mississippi State can push inside the top 25, or at least right on the edge of it. I think this has the ability of being a top 25 class and a really good high school class especially. And then we'll see what they add in the transfer portal as well. But so far, so good for Jeff Lebby. I'm really interested to see what he does with a year out of being coach as a recruiter, because I've been impressed with what he's been able to sell to these guys in a short period of time, especially to these offensive guys and these high school guys. He's done a great job to this point, and we'll see if he's able to keep that up. I think they have a chance to have a good recruiting class next year with a year out. So, that's basically where things are right now. Good, solid start for the Bulldogs, and we'll see if they're able to keep it up and actually build on it. All right, y'all. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. It's been a great year. I really appreciate every single one of you for supporting me and supporting this YouTube page. We've added nearly 1,000 subscribers this year, and that's really humbling to me. It's usually just me talking on here, so a lot of you guys are coming on here just to hear me talk. Some of you are not. Some of you are here for, the press conference and stuff like that, and I appreciate that too. But to grow from, the bottom all the way up to over 2,000 subscribers now, it means a lot to me, and I appreciate your support too on Thunder and Lightning. We've seen some astronomical numbers this year. It's been incredible. We've really grown as a podcast, and we haven't had numbers higher than this. And also on 247, this is the most subscribers we've ever had over at 247. It's the most subscribers ever on a network at Mississippi State. And that's thanks to you guys and to some hard work by all of us to bring you guys the best news that we can. So I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family as well for the support there, because this is our livelihood. Talking about Mississippi State sports is how I make money. I mean, let's be honest. And it means a lot that you guys have poured in your support. I know you guys are doing that because you're big State fans, but I appreciate that nonetheless. So I hope you guys have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year as well. We might try to get on here next week. We'll see what happens before the new year. But if not, I wish you guys a Happy New Year. I hope you have a great 2024 as well. Prosperous for you all, and a lot of love in your life and good things to come. So hope you guys have a great week, great Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll talk to you later.